Hello, algebra students. This is Mr. Lawrence with your review video for Chapter 5. Honor students, you'll be watching this first, and you'll probably be watching this Monday and Tuesday night. The test is going to be Wednesday, unless something happens to push it back. But to summarize it, Chapter 5 is all about linear equations and graphing, right? That's what it's all about. So, remember, we know three types of equations that we can graph from. First is slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. I expect you to know this form, recognize it, be able to name it, and know that b is your y-intercept, and that m is your slope, and that you know you're in slope-intercept form because the y is alone. Y is alone. Okay? Now, how do you graph from there? Well, let's get a sheet of graph paper out here. There we go. Something really strange happened there. And let's say I have an equation like y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. Well, I graph my y-intercept. Sorry, I should label x and y. I graph my y-intercept, 1, 2, 3, 4. And my slope is negative 2/3. I have a choice. I can use a negative 2 over 3, or I can use 2 over negative 3. I can't make them both negative. So I go down 2 and then right 1, 2, 3. If I had wanted to go up 2, I could go back 1, 2, 3. And then I have my line. Now I expect you to know how to do this. Can't find my lines there. There we go. Okay, up to 1, 2, 3. And so we'll go like that. And I'm going to make him a little bit thinner. Okay, it'll look something like that. Of course, if y isn't alone, we might take a real quick step to get y alone. You know, if we have y minus 4 equals 3x plus 1, well, then we could get y alone by adding 4 to both sides. And so y would equal 3x plus 5. And in that case, I know that my y-intercept is at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my slope is 1, 2, 3, and over 1. And of course down here 1, 2, 3, and back 1. And then I can draw my line. 1, 2, 3, and then back 1. And so it's going to do something like that. Okay. Put an arrowhead on it and I'm good to go. Now, I'm not going to do all the different scenarios where how you get y alone. I expect you to know that. That's, you know, part of algebra. Okay, a second form that we had is standard form. And remember, standard form looks like ax plus by equals c. Kind of looks like equals 0. Let me rewrite that. And a has to be positive. That's what a greater than 0 mean. A has to be positive. So when we're in an equation, when we have an equation like that, all right, bring my axes out here, and boom, and so, okay, how do we graph from it? Well, let's say we have the equation 3x minus 4y, and that's going to equal 8. I'm in standard form. Now there's going to be some situation where you have to convert it to standard form. But again, I expect you to know how to do that. If you don't, you better come see me. And let me see here. I'm going to identify A, B, and C. A is 3, B is negative 4, and C is 8. Now to graph, I know my shortcuts. I know to find the x-intercept. I can do C over A, right? To do the y-intercept, I could do C over B. And to do the slope, I could do the negative A over B. Now, I'm not liking C over A. It's not going to be divisible. I can do it. It's just not going to be pretty. I'll do it. I'm going to get 8 over 3, 0. Or I could call that what? 2 2/3. 0. I don't want to graph 2 2/3. I can, I'm capable, I know how. I just don't want to. It'd be easier to maybe find the y-intercept, which is going to be 8 over, oops, it's going to be 0 there, and then 8 over -4. And that, of course, would be better as 0, -2. Well, I know how to graph that. I mean, I know how to graph the other one too, but watch what's going to happen. All right, m is going to equal the negative of a over b, and that's better set as 3/4. So now I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, and run 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line and watch what's going to happen here. Okay, I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, and back 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. That looks pretty good there. Okay, and so all right. Um, that looks pretty good. Now, notice I didn't graph the y-intercept, but notice it's crossing the x-axis right around here, isn't it? Well, that's 2/3 of the way in between, isn't it? This would be 2. This would be 3. So that open circle there would be at 2 2/3, wouldn't it? Yeah, my graph, even though there might be a small human error, it still crosses approximately at 2 2/3. It doesn't cross exactly at 3. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you. Okay, the third type is point slope form. That's where we have y minus a y coordinate. And that'll equal the slope times the quantity of x minus an x coordinate, right? And there's a point hiding in here, and the point is x sub 1, y sub 1, and then the slope is m. M is the slope. Okay, well, that's probably the easiest one to graph from. Let me get my all right, and x and y, and so if I'm in point slope form, I might have an equation that looks like this. Oops, y minus 5 equals -2 times the quantity of x plus 4. So the point that goes through this line is a point -4, +5. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, there's that point. And then the slope is -2 over 1. All right. And there we go. All right, so if I go to graph, boom, there is my line. I don't know the x-intercept or y-intercept specifically unless I happen to cross them at a point I know, but I don't necessarily need to know them to graph. Put an arrowhead on there. I'll make it a little bit thinner, make it a different color. There we go. That looks pretty good. And there we are. So that's the 3 types of graphing. Okay. Now we also had to calculate slope, right? And we subtract our y's and we subtract our x's, and the y's rise to the top. Some of you still aren't doing that. You know, you can do it your own way, but if you're getting it wrong doing it your own way, then it's just foolish. Trust me, do it the way I suggest. You've got an x and a y, an x and a y. I'm going to subtract my y's. Well, maybe I'm going to do -5 minus -8. It's not -8 because that's not an 8 in there. That's a -8. I need -5 minus -8. I'm always subtracting. Then I'll have 3 minus -7. I know that taking away a negative is a positive thing. And so when I do -5 plus 8, I get 3. When I get 3 plus 7, I get 10. My slope for this first point, first line that goes through these 2 points is 3/10. Rise 3, run 10. All right, number well, I don't have a number, do I? I'll call this B. On letter B, I have, I'm going to do 7 minus 5 in my numerator. Why? Because the y's rise to the top. Then I have to do 2 minus 6. Notice I started with a 7. The numerator, I'm forced to start with a 2 in the denominator. Okay, 7 minus 5 is 2. 2 minus 6 is negative 4. Simplify that and I get negative 1/2 is my slope. Pretty easy stuff. All right, C, my numerator is going to be 10 minus 8. My denominator is going to be 5 minus 5. Now you are in algebra. You need to know what 2 divided by 0 is. You need to know that you can't divide by 0. This, you could tell me two things. You could say it has no slope, or you could tell me that it is undefined, because you are never allowed to divide by 0. All right, part D. We're going to do negative 2 minus negative 2. And then in the denominator, we will do 8 minus 3. Well, taking away a negative is a positive thing, and I get 0 in the numerator, and 8 minus 3 is 5. Well, if I have no money split into 5 groups, each group gets $0. So this slope is 0. All right, let me get to a new page here. Now, we should be able to write our equation when only given 2 points. Write it in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. I need to know the slope. Well, that's easy enough to figure out. I just did that kind of stuff. Let's go with the slope on this one, 2 minus negative 10 over negative 6 minus 2. And I'm going to get 12 over negative 8. And that is going to simplify to 3 halves, and it'll be a negative. So now I know the slope, right? Now I need to figure out the y-intercept. Well, I know the equation y equals mx plus b. I know that m is negative 3 over 2. All I did was substitute my slope in for m. If I knew an x, I could put it in here. Well, hey, how about x is negative 6? If I knew a y, I could put it here. Well, if x is negative 6, y has to be 2. How do I know? Right there. That's an x value, and that's a y value. And then I'm trying to solve for b. I'm going to multiply and then get b alone. So I'll have 2 is going to equal, 2 is going to go into 6 3 times. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9 plus b. And then I'm going to subtract 9 to get b alone. And b is going to end up equaling negative 7. So now I know the slope and the y-intercept. I can write my equation. Y is going to equal negative 3 over 2 x minus 7. And there we go. All right, on this one here, I'm going to find the slope. So I'm going to go negative 2 minus negative 6. And in the denominator, I'll do 9 minus negative 3. And my numerator is going to be 4. My denominator is going to be 12, and that'll simplify to 1/3. Excuse me. All right, so I take y equals mx plus b. I fill in a y, an m, and a b, and I can get, excuse me, I fill in a y, m, and an x, and then I can solve for b. How did I know y was negative 2? I have two y possibilities. I could use that one, or I could use that one. I chose the negative 2. Why? It looked easier to me. That's my only stipulation. If you think the other one looks easier to you, that's wonderful. So then I will subtract 3 from both sides, and I'll get negative 5 equals b. And so now I can write my equation as y equals 1/3 x minus 5. And there's my equation. Now I want to back up to something. It won't let me. There we go. I want to back up to these calculating slope problems right here. No slope. What kind of line would this be? Well, just make a little sketch graph. If you don't know, figure it out. Find some way. Fight, scratch, and claw. Some of you give up just so easy. It's so pathetic when you just give up. 5'8" would be approximately there. 5'10" would be right there. What kind of line is that going to be? Well, it's going to be a vertical line, isn't it? A vertical line, kind of like that. It might be off a little bit, but I'm just doing a quick sketch. And then once you know that, you should be able to write the equation. Okay? A vertical line will have the equation x equals some number. I wonder what number x is going to equal. It's going to equal 5. Yeah. Okay, over here on this one, if you did a little sketch graph to find out what kind of line has 0 slope, okay, and y is at 3, -2, and it's also at 8, -2. Well, what kind of line is that? Well, that's a horizontal line, isn't it? Isn't that the only possibility there? It's going to be a horizontal line looking like that. So, there we go. And the equation of that line would be y equals, I wonder what y should equal. Looks like it's always going to be -2. All right. Now, we also did some story problems. Here we have one. Brutus sells tickets to all the Buckeye games. He buys up lots of tickets and then sells them for more than he paid so he can make a profit. Brutus spends $30 to purchase tickets and charges $7 per ticket. You should remember that this per means that this number here is a slope, right? Dollars per pound, dollars per gallon. Those are all slopes, the ratios. This $30 is what he had to spend up front. He spent $30. This is B. So M is going to equal 7. B is going to equal -30. So my equation will be y equals 7x minus 30. There you go. Now I can go ahead and graph. Let's see, I tried to give myself enough here. I wonder if I did a good job here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not actually going to put a 5 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I might have to count by twos, but that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like I'm going to make it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's -30 right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's at -30. That's my y-intercept. Now my slope is 7. So I'm going to go up 7 and then right 1. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then right 1. Okay. And I'm going to go up 7. So it's 1, 6, 7, and right 1. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and right 1. All right. And finally, up 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and right 1. So right about there. So I'm going to get this line going. Oops, sorry about that. And it's going to start there. It's actually going to be a ray, right? Something just happened there. There we go. All right, properties. And okay, now As we look at this, X represents the number of tickets, right? And then the y-axis represents the profit made. So when he hasn't sold any tickets, his profit is negative $30, right? If he sold 2 tickets, because that looks like it's a 2 there, well then he's made 5, 10, 15, negative $16, right? He's in the hole, $16. He's actually lost money. Okay, so what does the question say? How many tickets does Bruce need to sell so that he does not lose any money? Well, let's see here. 2, 3, 4. That's 4. And that's 5. It looks like the graph crosses right here. Now, it's not possible to sell 4.5 tickets or 4 1/3 or whatever that number is. I could put in 0 for y and solve, but check it out. All I have to do is look at the graph and realize that, oh, as soon as he sells 5 tickets, he has a profit. It's a small profit, but it's a profit. 5 tickets or more will result in a profit. Okay, I expect you to be able to do this. Take the information, turn it into an equation, graph it, and then interpret the graph. Okay. Now, those of you who are going to blow this part of the test off, you are going to do very poorly because these questions require higher order thinking and will be worth more points. I suggest you come in for help. All right, Mr. Lawrence signing off. Have a good night, everybody.